Hey guys, back again. This unit, just to recap, this unit is kind of split up into two parts. The first part of it, is mostly about the Renaissance, and that's kind of the name of the unit, where we really focus in on humanism and secularism and talk about, just how people in general are approaching life differently during this time, and a lot of the artistic achievement. That's a big part of it also. And the second part of the unit is really about the Protestant Reformation. That's really the other big topic here. So, with regard to the Protestant Reformation, the way we've covered it is we've kind of talked about the Protestant side and the beginning of the Reformation with Martin Luther and his 95 Theses. Then we talked about the Catholic response to that, and now we're going to talk about how these kind of religions kind of come together over this issue, and come together, I guess, is a fancy word for what kind of conflict is going to result from this. So we looked at both sides individually, and now we're going to look at them coming together. So that's the plan here. So here we go. So, just to recap, the Martin Luther writes his 95 Theses, which is a list of complaints against the Catholic Church. It's mostly about the sale of indulgences, if you remember, which is the idea that if people can donate money to the church will wipe away their sins. So, his biggest complaint is that the church is doing that. And that's kind of an ugly thing that he's not really into. It's not in the spirit of Catholicism. So that's his main complaint. So he posts that on the door of his church. Everyone gets all up in arms and starts to realize that maybe the Catholic Church not doing the greatest things. This kind of cuts into their power. The Catholics respond with the Counter Reformation, which is the Jesuits, the Council of Trent, the Spanish Inquisition, etc. And ultimately, what results here is these competing religions, Catholic and Protestant, throughout Europe. So, with regard to this map down here, you can see these. This red is Orthodox Christianity. The green is Roman Catholic, and the blue, okay, is Protestantism. Okay, so you can see how these religions are kind of bordering each other, and in many cases mixed together, which is going to make for an interesting situation. So here we go. First thing we have to note is Spain. Spain is the most Catholic of the countries in Europe, and it is like Catholicism's home base. Okay, they will kind of utilize a weird term called militant Catholicism, which is where the Spanish king, King Philip at the time, is going to use his military to suppress Protestantism. So he's basically going to use warfare to shut down a religion. That's his plan. So this shows itself first when he sends his army to the Netherlands, which is a Spanish colony at the time, and his army is used to shut down a Protestant uprising there. Shortly thereafter, he sends his navy, which is the famous Spanish Armada, to invade England, essentially. And the idea is that England is the home base for Protestantism. So if we can kind of invade England and shut down Protestantism there, it would kind of amount to cutting the head off of the snake, so to speak, and Protestantism would kind of wither and die throughout the continent of Europe. And Catholicism can then be returned to its rightful position as the most exalted religion with the most followers and the only game in town, and going back to wielding the power that they always had in the past. um, this trip from the Spanish Armada is going to be a giant failure, and it is almost a comedy of errors and bad luck that leads to their defeat. But long story short, the most powerful navy on the planet at the time, the Spanish Armada, is reduced to just a few ships due to the course of events that occurs. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you'll kind of read about some of it in the classwork, what happens to the Spanish Armada that leads to their defeat. So I'll leave that for the classwork. Other than that, you'll see the 30 Years' War, which is in the Holy Roman Empire, quote unquote. And we looked at this when we saw Charlemagne and the Middle Ages, etc. So inside this Holy Roman Empire that you guys are already familiar with, it's Catholic. That's the whole idea. If you remember, Charlemagne was the original emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, and he was crowned emperor by the Pope. So this is very much a Catholic kind of endeavor. So the Holy Roman Empire is mostly Catholic, but pockets of Protestantism start popping up inside of the what is known as the Holy Roman Empire, and this upswing in the pockets of Protestantism throughout the empire lead to conflict, and this conflict is called the 30 Years' War. So you guys will check that out a little deeper in the classwork also. Look, the end all be all kind of summary of all of this is that this Protestant Reformation and the development of this new religion kind of fractures and breaks apart the religious unity in Europe. Before this, all the people in all of Europe were all Catholic. But once Protestantism begins, that's not the case anymore. So this leads to a significant weakening of the Catholic Church. In addition to that, it kind of also makes room for the increased power of governments. And that's really the moral of the story. Because the Catholic Church, when it was around, was this single all powerful organization, now it has been reduced. It is not the single all powerful organization that it once was. And now governments can rise up and take enough power over their own people to kind of be in a position of authority above the church. And we're going to see what some of the results of that are as we kind of move forward with the course. But that is the connection between the Protestant Reformation and the strength of governments that happens. So that's something that we're going to return to. So check out the classwork. Let me know if you guys need any help. And I'm around as usual. All right. Later.